Let's bring in Sky News political editor Andrew Clennell. Well, I mentioned first day back at school, and I tell you, I've been there long enough. It is like a boarding school on day one. How did it play out, Andrew?
Well, I think it played out the government's way, frankly, Peter. And the reason is because Peter Dutton had no choice but to go with the government's plan and say he'll have a later plan. Now, that's another chapter. This is a battle. We're talking about a war here in terms of the next election. And then you could see from the opposition questions, they didn't want to go there. The polls have told the story. The news poll, no doubt their own internals, what's happening in Dunkley. They just want to say, look, PM, get this thing through, your electoral bribe, I guess, on July 1, and let's get on with other matters. And the fact that you have broken a promise means you are going to break others. That's kind of where they are at. Albanese looked more confident than he's been for a long time. He was rocked by the voice. His colleagues told me that. I put that to him. There's no doubt that dented his confidence. To come in here with something to talk about, giving some extra money, as meagre as it might be, to lower and middle income earners, that was something for him to push and something to actually run with. And he didn't have anything much to run with last year except the voice, which didn't work, as you pointed out. And you pointed out correctly, you know, they were ahead in the voice and then things turned around. So things can turn around quickly, but it looks like the government's weak at this point.
Look, I'm not surprised the coalition didn't run on the tax cuts broken promise, because they've basically just broken out of their own party room meeting to say that they were going to support them or not oppose them through the parliament. I mean, I've sat there in those questions committee. I mean, that does tie your hands, absolutely. And I don't think the lie plays out immediately. I think the lie now is this constant seed of doubt in the minds of voters between now and the next election, that doesn't matter what the bloke promises them, how confident are they as voters that he will do what he says, that he won't backtrack, that he won't change his mind, that he won't be tricky on it. I do think his language there on that question regarding investment properties, negative gearing, was a bit of a dance around, as it was with Katie Gallagher, I think, on your program on Sunday, and certainly Jim Chalmers. You know, they're all a little bit careful with their words. And you and I know that they've got all options on the table.
Well, Katie and Jim want to go further, right? Or perhaps Jim and Katie in that order. And Albanese won't let them. And that's one of the difficulties for the coalition, by the way, that he is pretty conservative on this stuff. A lot of the people underneath him probably talking to the Treasury officials and being yes-ministered a bit, but also trying to appeal to the left of the party in Jim Chalmers' case because he wants to win a leadership vote. They want to go further with some tax reform. And I said on Politics Now today, one of the disappointing things from my perspective is that they're always looking at ways to get more revenue. They're not looking at spending. And this is the opportunity for Peter Dutton, because the NDIS is out of control. I think when he announces his tax package with a return to, and I think bigger tax cuts than stage 3, including at the higher end, he'll promise, I think he needs to look at something like means testing the NDIS to pay for it. I think that there is ground there to say, these guys spend too much. That's why they come after your money. We're going to give you back more of your money. And look, because this NDIS is out of control. And we hear the fraud stories, and you hear anecdotally the double charging and overcharging that goes on. And you hear that, look, don't get me wrong, Peter, it's a noble thing. People profoundly disabled need this, and that's good. But you cannot tell me the growth in this scheme is what it was intended for or what should be the case. The government's promised to address it.
Well, it wasn't.
I don't think they're doing enough. I don't think they're doing enough, and I think this is Dutton's opportunity, because the government wants to yell at him, you're fiscally irresponsible, you won't be able to find the revenue for your extra tax cuts. This is the answer for him.
You can also bring in a gap payment, because there are gap payments, as we know, with Medicare. There's not a gap payment in NDIS. I think that's also an issue. And I do think they've got to means test childcare. I mean, the idea in this country, there are people, households on $500,000 worth of income that are getting taxpayer support for childcare. I think that needs to be looked at very carefully. But I 100% agree with your point there about spending. I think there are a lot of politicians on both sides of the aisle, Andrew, who are pretty weak on the idea of reining in spending. They're all spooked after that 2014 budget, but we cannot continue the way we're going. You talk there about the Labor mood. I mean, it's a big call for the Labor caucus to listen to the Prime Minister say, back me, trust me, come with me this year, I'll get us back in the game, because that was his line week in, week out on The Voice. We all saw what happened there, and that disastrous end of the year on home affairs and the detention, detaining issues, etc. But what's the general mood inside Labor? How do you pick it? What's the mood inside the coalition as well? Right. And the coalition?
Well, I think the coalition were hoping that he'd lose some paint over the broken promise, and it hasn't materialised in the fashion that they hope. So maybe they're a little bit down. That's where things are at the moment.
Yeah, I think
Having
this stuff
said that,
plays out a while though.
Labor MPs are saying to me, look, a lot of people don't even understand the tax cuts yet. But some have been pleasantly surprised. I've had one or two saying their electorate is not going down so well. Others who have a lot of people on over 180 in their electorate reckon it's going okay. Reckon that because they have far more people on lower incomes, it's going okay.
I think punters, Andrew, will like the soak the rich, rob Peter to pay Paul, take it off the rich and spread the tax cuts out. I think that plays to Labor's base. I don't think they're going to be happy when they see it's only $15 a week. I mean, that's gone with the petrol increases this week. And I will say it took us quite a while in 2010, 2011 to land the carbon tax broken promise on Julia Gillard. It doesn't happen overnight. And as I make the point, it's more about then the legacy that taints all the other promises from here on in. Just quickly, Dunkley by-election, what are you hearing?
I'm hearing there's a swing against Labor, but they'll probably hold on. And I think the other thing you need to factor in, though, which is a concern for the coalition, is we could see rate cuts at the end of the year, and we will see more gimmies from the government in the budget. This is just the start of the cost of living relief.
Spot on. Handouts. Your cost of living relief is my handout, but there you go. All right, Andrew, well, I look forward to being on the desk with you for Dunkley. Thanks for your time.